Hi. In the last video, we discussed a number of key insights into this idea of one-thing planning, and I want to continue that conversation now. Specifically, I want to talk about purpose, priorities, and productivity. 3 key insights. Whether you chunk out your time in terms of hours, half days, days, whatever, the key issue is that you prioritize those things that make a difference, that give you a high return on your invested time. And this means allocating time to them first. This is how you make purpose and priority productive. So let's talk about them in order. Most successful people use purpose like a compass. I often say that a life without purpose is a life not worth living, as opposed to a life without reflection is a life not worth living. But I think that what's interesting about purpose is it gives a sense of meaning, it gives energy, it gives focus, it builds confidence, it builds strength. And I think the ultimate source of strength and commitment and the ability to carry forward into the future and achieve real goals comes from a real sense of purpose. Prescription for extraordinary results is knowing what matters to you and then taking daily dose of action in alignment with that. This idea of back from the future thinking, this idea of goal setting to the now, starting big and drilling right down, lining up your dominoes, if you will, on your stereo of one thing. What this does, it trains your mind how to think, how to connect goals, and how to put goals in context. You're learning how to think big and go small, how to prioritize. So one-thing planning is really, really important for purpose and in developing purpose, also really important for prioritizing. I think one of the problems that people often have is they do get a sense of clarity around purpose, they do get a sense of clarity around the priorities, they have a plan, they have strategic goals and objectives, but they don't know how to actually give life to that, how to really become productive, how to maximize that. Successful people are without doubt the most productive people, and by that I don't mean that they work the hardest, although they do work very hard. What I actually mean is that they devote the maximum amount of time to the highest, the most leveraged activities, the key things in the one-thing plan, the one thing they can do right now, such that by doing it, everything else is easier or even unnecessary. And the way they do it is they block out time. We talked at great length in the previous video about chunking, about blocking out time, but it's a very results-orientated way of looking at time. You identify what has to be done, you chunk out the time so that it gets done. If disproportionate results come from one activity, then you must give that one activity disproportionate amount of time. It makes sense, doesn't it? This tends to be what we don't do. So I want you to think about this idea of productivity in terms of the allocation of time, identifying in the context of your purpose and your priority what are the critical things that you need to do, and then allocating time, chunking out the time, allocating the time and focusing on those things. Remember, 1 before 1 o'clock, focusing on those things until they're done. Just before I finish this video, I want to share one last thought with you, an insight again into the one-thing planning. And I don't know if any of you have ever read the book called The 4 Agreements. It's written by a man called Ruse, and in that he says that the 4 agreements are being impeccable with the word. So don't lie to yourself, don't gossip, don't take anything personally, nothing anybody says or does has anything to do with you. Don't make assumptions, and finally, always do your best. I want to talk about always do your best for a moment. The reason he says you should always do your best is that if you always do your best, you'll have no regrets and no recriminations. You'll always be able to look back and say, well, I did my best. And I think in the one-thing planning, that is a very positive thing that comes out of it. If you have a one-thing plan, you have a sense of purpose, you've drilled your way down to things to do today, and you're doing those right here, right now. You are doing your best. And irrespective of the outcome, there's no sense of regret. Oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, I should have done the other. A real positive sense, a very empowering sense that in fact you're doing what matters. I think it's a great reason to think about one-thing planning, if for no other reason. Thank you. You can find all of this that we've just discussed in the blog. So please go to the blog section of my website and read this for yourself. Print it out, share it if you wish.